Hi everyone, my name is Gavin Arneill. I'm a postdoc in University College Cork, and alongside Mark Jessopp, I'm working on the INTERREG VA project MarPAMM. So my work's spread across two work packages within MarPAMM. The first is in the Seabird work package, and I'm looking at seabird fisheries interactions. And the second is within the marine mammal work package. I'm looking at seal distributions and shipping intensity. Both direct and indirect seabird fisheries interactions have been documented in a wide range of species. The best studied seabird fisheries interaction is bycatch. This is a threat to up to 28% of the seabird species worldwide, and in some populations, it's thought to be responsible for declines of up to 40 to 60%. However, our understanding of how seabirds interact with vessels is not well quantified in many different species and across different regions. Furthermore, not much information about how different species interact with different fishing gear types is in the literature. Outside of direct observations of seabird fisheries interactions in the field, there have been several methods used to assess this. The first is looking at the spatio-temporal overlap between seabirds and fisheries. The second is to use the proportion of discards found within a diet. This is typically analysed using stable isotope analysis of, say, feathers and blood samples, and then using this to infer how much seabirds are interacting with fisheries. And lastly, and the method we've used here, is to look at the bird's movement and behaviour in relation to fishing vessels. So this was first looked at with using cameras deployed alongside GPS tracks, and has since advanced using hidden Markov modeling techniques to look at how a bird changes its behavior in response to a fishing vessel location. The first step in our analysis was to collate as much existing tracking data within the INTERREG VA area as possible to then use movement analysis to assess seabird fisheries interactions. We were able to collate a tracking data set of over 1,500 trips from 7 different species by working with multiple organizations, which are highlighted in the bottom left here. So now that we have our seabird tracking data, we look at the corresponding fishing vessel locations which are nearest in time and in space, and at each point along our seabird tracks, we extract the distance and the bearing to the nearest fishing vessel from the VMS. Also, while we were here processing, we extracted certain variables that might explain why and how these birds are interacting with different vessels. So we extracted the vessel speed and the gear type, so we can use vessel speed to infer vessel behavior to see if birds are hanging around fishing vessels that are actively fishing, or are they also following non-fishing vessels. And then also look across different gear types, which has been shown to be important from previous studies. So access to the VMS data was provided by the Marine Institute for the Irish VMS data, and I took a trip to Marine Scotland Science in Aberdeen in March this year to process the UK VMS data. Now that we have both the seabird tracking data and the fishing vessel data, we can carry out the movement analysis using hidden Markov models. Typically in seabird studies, hidden Markov models define 3 behavioral states. The first being resting, so when a bird's sitting on the water. The second, area restricted search, so ARS, so this is usually inferred as foraging behavior. And the last is transit, so movement between places. Parada et al. Expanded on this framework, incorporating additional states based on separating out behaviors from movement phases. So these movement phases, there are 3, are shown in the image here, where you can see the green is when the bird is traveling away from the colony out to sea, the black when the bird is traveling towards and foraging near fishing vessels, and the last is on the orange, which is the return leg of the journey. The following animation shows how the model runs through a foraging trip and defines behavior at each step. The bird here is shown with the colored dot, whereas the location of the nearest fishing vessel is marked by the blue X. You may want to pause the video here, look at the color code, and then I'll leave this run through again so you can see from the beginning. Just to give you a quick overview of the general results we've found. So you can see on the image on the right here, shows the proportion of all foraging behavior estimated by the model, which is associated with vessels. So you can see from this that both northern fulmar and northern gannets associated with vessels the most, followed by the black-eyed kittiwake, and then some species show no interactions at all, including the European shag, and then some have very few interactions. These slides really just give you an overview of the analysis we've carried out and some high-level results that we're wanting to include in the final report. The final report will look at the differences across species. However, we want to go into more in-depth analysis as well, looking at of the species that do interact with vessels, what differences do we see across different gear types that they're interacting with, and also what drivers there might be in terms of how long an interaction lasts. Yeah, so that's everything with the Seabird work so far, and we'll move on to the next part we're working on with MarPAMM. So a bit of a change. For the marine mammal work package, we're looking at producing seal usage maps and looking at shipping pressures within the MarPAMM area. So a bit of background, both grey and harbour seals are abundant across much of the coastline in Britain and Ireland. They're both protected and listed under the EU Habitats Directives as Annex 2 species. And why might we look at their overlap with shipping is because of the potential effects of underwater noise. So their functional hearing range of the seals overlaps with the frequencies emitted from large commercial shipping, which is quite abundant within the area. So to produce updated seal usage maps, we collaborated with SMRU in St Andrews. They collated a considerable telemetry data set of animals that moved within the MarPAMM area from both the UCC and SMRU data sets. And Matt Carter, a postdoctoral researcher in SMRU, produced region-specific habitat preference models and used these then to predict the seal usage across the MarPAMM area at a 5 by 5 kilometre scale. So we have results for these, and you can see here on this slide is the predicted mean at sea distribution of grey seals within the MarPAMM area. The values show a percentage of the UK and Irish population at sea at any given time within each 5 by 5 kilometre grid cell. And then for the harbour seal, we have the same output, where you can see the more coastal distribution of these populations, and again the values are shown as a percentage of the UK and Irish population at sea at any given time. For more information on the modelling approach as well as the results, all is found within the seal distribution report, deliverable T3.1.6 for MarPAMM. So the next steps we're working on now is to look at the overlap with shipping intensity in the area, and to do so we're first using the EMODNet AIS dataset, and hopefully a potential collaboration with the INTERREG Atlantic Area JONAS project will give us access to a detailed underwater noise propagation model that will give us more accurate understanding of the distribution of shipping noise within the area and how that overlaps with our seal distributions. So thank you very much for listening, and this is just to give you a brief overview of what the work we're carrying out on MarPAMM's two work packages. And if you have any questions, please do give me a shout. Thank you.